Rolling. All right, the intention for today is to do what we came here to do. And that is to open a gateway, a hole in the earth, so that the angels and all the rest of the gang can load in what they're going to load in. It's a large project. The project is large enough that interdimensional agencies have rearranged their ascension schedule and programs so that they can use this event, the workshop, to do this particular job that we're doing today. And we started yesterday. So that's, by doing that, we were told last night that the change in their project schedule will give them a better result by using the workshop now to insert their programs. So that's what's going on from that view. We checked in with the Inner Planes people last night and to see if there's anything we needed to know today, and there is. So a very powerful male type showed up. He calls himself David. Says his name isn't important, but he gave it to us anyway.
Well, he said it was close to his.
Close, yeah, close to it. And he said that by our identifying the Sha'alura event with this energetic system, then he could change their program, like I just said, to accelerate it, to make it more efficient, better, and more effective. But we had to increase the weight or the emphasis on the Pacific grounding point. Now just, I don't know if I explained that, I don't think I did. When Edie and I first tuned in on this thing, before we even knew about the Sha'alura thing, she was picking up system, I'm trying to remember, the system in the Atlantic and the Pacific that had a wave streaming into the Antarctic. And then from the Antarctic, there's a stream coming up with the code EIE, which is the I am that I am, or AA, Ashir, AA, name of God, which we did yesterday. We didn't know what that was about at the time. And that was also associated with other events, arcs and so on, so it wasn't just that. But that's when we first found out that this whole thing existed. Research right after that turned it up. So anyway, the two stars that went nova and then phase matched in 2009, and then that wave is coming in for the July 23rd event. That's the Sha'alura. The two stars are focusing in the Atlantic and the Pacific. And the points in the Pacific are Bora Bora, and the one in the Atlantic is underwater. That would be interesting, probably, to show on. Well, a little later. Yeah, make a note. Actually, the satellite picked up the square in the ocean as a physical image. It's 80 miles on the side. So anyway, that point focuses all of the arc activity in that half of the world in the Pacific does for that half of the world. Ark activity is isn't Ark of the Covenant, as I said. That was a downgrade, powerful as it was a downgrade from the real one, which is called the Ark of On. And that Ark of On has been upgraded 1,000%, multiplied, and we now have an order within the world soul, the Ordo Rochella Angelica, ORA. That's what our 6 light groups are in, including the Crestone group. So our function under Thoth is to come up, devise, and contrive all the different kinds of arcs, plural, that are necessary for all kinds of situations. And every person has, just as an example, every person now, every ensouled being, can load their own internal arcs. There are 3 arcs vertically and 4 around in a horizontal plane centered on the center one. And as an interesting side note, our John D. here and Carol Mann started that whole program a number of years ago. Took a couple of years to develop it before it went into the World Soul in 2008. Anyway, each of the arcs has 5 arcs concentric in it. And each arc has 6 planes. In the Bible, there's a seat. That seat is the activity. Well, a cube has 6 seats or sides. So you can multiply one arc cube by 6 functions. And there are 5 in one system, so that's 30 going in one system. And 7 times that in the body. So every person, and the high self decides whether it's going to load up these arcs, because it hugely increases one's ability to understand, process information, and do things. It's up into the new race range. So that virtually gives every person on the planet that number of arcs to use. Now you put the people in a group, so you have the group entity system. If you have 5 groups, you get the idea that this arc thing gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So all the arcs, from now on ever, foreseeable future, divided in half on the planet. The focal point for this half is in the Atlantic. It's called the Tirahu point. And then the one in the Pacific is in Bora Bora. So those 2 very potent focal points are what the stars are coming in to focus in the Sha'alura. So that gives them the access into all of these arcs from now on, for one thing, in a nonlinear time. That makes it relevant for right now. And they are streaming then into the Antarctic ice cap, where it's processing in the Earth's south pole, and then coming on up into the planet, world soul. Now the project today is larger than the world soul by a lot. It's greater. This is after David was telling us to boost up the Pacific point, to designate people in those points, and then to boost the importance of the Pacific point was important. And he specified Edie and myself to take those positions. Mainly because that's where we've been working and conditioned to handle that kind of thing. Uh, okay, well, let's see, did I cover all of David's comments? The important ones anyway, that affect us.
His thing was that he was really involved in that energy. That's why he was here, that he was not part of the 2417 that we talk about. He was a, anyway, not a friend, there's a word, compadre, something like that. Anyway, he was a part of another system. But he had come because he was involved in that energy, and because they were able to, now that it was so close, they were able to make some adjustments and strengthen it, and that he was really grateful that Bill was doing this process, we were doing this process, because they could influence it now as opposed to a later time before July 23rd. It would be better now than it would be later. So he was grateful. It was great. So that was his stick, but he was not. He was from someplace far away to come to make sure that the energy was good for this amazing project.
He was looking through your left eye, right?
Yeah.
And just a funny
Yeah, I
thing.
need therapy. It's the first time I felt someone looking through this eye and someone else looking through this eye. So I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna need therapy on this one.
Which the angels later made a joke of. So next we picked up the angelic representation. And she said that we were pretty short in our program on the angelic presence, and that they needed that really an important thing to add in, and it was up to me to decide where, and it didn't make much difference. As long as we had the presence, that was the main thing. So our angels for today, you're sitting in the back row.
And she said that it was basically on Gaia's request, so that Gaia asked for this so that her people wouldn't fry. Was that exactly the way they put it? To get
People on the planet.
To ease the process, because it was going to be so strong, to get their energy in there for that, because, and those were the exact words, so that her people wouldn't fry.
Yeah. And that also, the action itself creates sort of a flash surge. So that's part of the thing that the resultant of the actual action and then the resultant of it.
Does this tie in at all to yesterday's gate?
Yeah.
The angel wings and the lantern?
That's my feel of it, and I want to identify that with something called the winged archaea shortly, just for the background, and because it seems to be indicated by our processes yesterday. So anyway, that's, this feathers, that's what they called them. She called the angelic feathers. Okay, let me change this and turn that off a sec.